Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being there this evening. I, Architect Mildred Jose, extend a very warm welcome to all the participants of the second day of the webinar lecture series organized by the Center for History and Archaeology. Before I proceed with the speaker for today, I would like to begin this session with a quote by American author Steve Berry. A concerted effort to preserve our heritage is a vital link to our cultural, educational, aesthetic, inspirational, and economic legacies. All of the things that make us who we are and who we will be. With that introductory note, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Tilok Thakuria. Dr. Tilok is presently working as an assistant professor in the Department of History and Archaeology, NEHU Tura campus. Dr. Thakuria's research interests are early Iron Age megalithic culture, early historic archaeology, and archaeology of Northeast India. Presently, his research focuses are on the stone jars of Assam and the prehistory of Meghalaya. Dr. Thakuria has published many research papers and one book titled Indian Beads, History and Technology, two edited books, Perspectives on Material Cultures in Northeast India and Rock Art Heritage of Northeast India. With that elaborate description, I request your full attention and help me welcome our speaker for the day, Dr. Tilok Thakuria, who will be enlightening us on an interesting topic, the mysterious stone jars of Assam, archaeology, folk memory, and the lost folk. Over to you, Dr. Tilok. Sir, please come on board.
Thank you very much. And good evening to all of you. First of all, I express my best wishes to Center for History and Archaeology for organizing such a online lecture. As introduced, I am basically an archaeologist. My area of research is prehistoric archaeology and megalithic archaeology of Northeast India. I will be speaking, rather I'll be sharing my work that we are doing from last 4 or 5 years in Assam on stone jars. The stone jars, why I said mysterious, the stone jars, this is mysterious, also unique. Why it is unique? Because this kind of stone jars, when I say stone jars, then it comes to our mind that small kind of storage jar or something. But it is not kind of storage jars. This kind of stone jars we find in Assam, it has parallel only in Southeast Asian countries. So far we do not have such kind of stone jars found anywhere else than Northeast India within India. That is why it's become a unique archaeological evidence in India. And recently, the stone jars in Southeast Asia from Laos got World Heritage status. That has been given the tag of World Heritage recently. So these stone jars are reported. I'm sharing my PPT. Okay. So is my PPT visible to all?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. So if you see this map covers India and Southeast Asia. The stone jars has wide distribution within Southeast Asia and only in Northeast India.
I'm sorry, sir, to interrupt you. Hello, sir. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the map is not seen. You're still on the first slide, sir. Yes, sir. Now it is visible. Thank you.
Okay. It means when I do full screen in my computer, it goes to the first slides only.
Okay.
So I have to continue like this. It's okay, no? Okay.
Yes, sir. It is visible. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So yeah. So we have the stone jars, wide distribution in Southeast Asia, covering the countries of Laos, Myanmar, and Indonesia. Then we have in Northeast India, in Assam, and recently it's found from Meghalaya. So now, before I go in detail about the stone jars, let us see some of the pictures, how they look like. These are the pictures from Southeast Asia and Assam. And these pictures, if I hope you can see my cursor on the presentation. This one, these three photographs on the top, these are from Southeast Asian countries, mainly from Laos. There are around 80 sites in Laos where more than 2,000 such kind of stone jars have been reported. And some of the jars in Laos were covered with a lid, but at present the lid has been removed. This has been placed by for just to show to the tourists that these were covered once upon a time. And the middle, these two photographs, these two are from Assam. And the last one, where I am standing, that is from Laos again, site 1. This is the largest and heaviest stone jars in anywhere in the world, weighing around 3 tons. And the broken one is from Indonesia. Now, I have organized my talk in 3 parts. First, stone jars of Northeast India. Then I will give a very competitive kind of information about Southeast Asian jar, and then general observation and conclusion. So now, stone jars of Northeast India was first reported in 1929 by J.P. Mills and J.S. Hutton. Both were civil servants under British government. They were deputed in Assam and Nagaland that time. So they have reported, they actually report in the sense they have given information by locals so that there are some kind of stone jars are there. And then they visited, then I wrote a paper in Royal Asiatic Society of Bengal. After that, they have given, their paper was very lengthy. They have reported 5 sites, and then they have given some description what they think about those stone jars, and they try to give some ethnographic analogy from the communities living around. And then after that, in 1956, Ursula Graham Bauer, who was an anthropologist, was working among the Jemi Nagas in Dima Hasao. She has not done any documentation as Mills and Hutton did, but she has given a passing remark how Jamis has memory about these jars, what Jemi Nagas think about the stone jars. She described about whether they claim these jars as their own or they don't claim, or what kind of memory they have. Only 1-2 pages she mentioned about it. And since then, till 2014, these jars were unnoticed by scholars. Archaeology of Northeast India were mainly focused on Neolithic archaeology, since there are several prehistoric sites are there covering in Meghalaya, Nagaland, and Assam. So their archaeologists were mainly focusing on Neolithic archaeology and sometime in megalithic remains. So in 2000 to 2014, myself, which at that time superintendent archaeologist Dr. Milan Chawle from Guwahati Circle, we have decided that we should visit and see that the 5 sites reported by Mills and Hutton in 1929 are there or not, or got destroyed or got extinct. Because ASI was in that time, Guwahati Circle was in confusion that these sites, from after 80 years of report, nobody has gone and nobody has done any kind of research. So then we have gone there, and then we tried to locate, but after much difficulty, because after 80 years, many of the village names been changed as Mills and Hutton has reported. So after much difficulty, we could find out of 4 sites we reported again that Mills and Hutton has reported deep in the jungle. And then in 2016, again with Archaeological Survey of India, we decided to do some in detail documentation in a site called Dubungling. That was the site Mills and Hutton reported as Derebore. And in last year, in 2020, on invitation of Autonomous Council of Dima Hasao, myself with my colleague from Guwahati University, again we made a exploration visit. We made a visit to Dima Hasao and did some documentation, surface documentation, and also reported 4 more new sites. Now, if you see this map shows the distribution of these stone jars. there are 10 stone jar sites are there. So these are all they're all located between 1,000 to 500 above the sea level. And there are this red line was a very high altitude, and then green one between 500 to 400 meters above sea level. So now how these Assam jars look like? These all pictures are from Assam, from different sites. We do not have that big jar like 3 tons in weight like in Laos we have, but we have a considerably large number of large stone jars. Around 900 stone jars we have in in Assam, whereas in Laos they have counted more than 2,000. Now this is the list where all 10 sites and with total number of jars at each site. First one, Lower Saikam, that we have discovered in 2020. That is 35 we have documented, but work is unfinished because of time. We could not finish the work. We are hopeful to get more stone jars from Lower Saikam. Then Herakilo also the same thing. It was the end of our field work. We have seen that site, and then inside the village we located 6, but the villager says that there will be more inside the jungle. So next season maybe we will be working on it. Then Thai modeling 1, Thai modeling 2. Then the highest number of jars are there in the site called Nungsung Bunglo. This site was reported by Milton happened in 1929, but that time they have reported only 400 jars in their paper that they published. But this time when we camped there and tried to document, we could find 546 jars. Here to make it so confirm that it is whatever we are documenting is a jar. So we are not documenting we did not document the fragments. We have documented the jar of a base of the jar, so that we definitely know that whatever we are documenting will give a total number of jars. And then Kobak, then Kartong and Hozai. These are 10 sites. So all totals we have more than around 8 to 900 jars we are having, compared to 2,000 jars in Laos from 80 sites. But here in 10 sites only we have more than near about 700 to 800 jars. And then the jars in Nungsung Munglo, where 546 jars are there. These are perhaps this site is perhaps the largest stone jar sites in the world, because in site 1 in Laos, they are not having more than 400 jars in site 1. If I remember it correctly, I think they have around 400 jars in site 1 in Laos. Whereas in this site in Nungsung Munglo in Assam, we have 546 jars distributed in such a manner from north to south direction on the top of the hills. The distribution of the jars are always top of the hill. On the top of the hill is never to the foot towards the down. It comes from top to the middle of the slope. And then these are the aerial view from the site called Nungsung Bunglo, where you see this house there. From here it starts. It goes around 500 to 600 meter away. These are distributed both sides. Down also there is a hut. You can see this area. The stone jars are distributed in Nungsung Bunglo. This again from close aerial view. You can see these stone jars how they are being distributed. One more. These are very destroyed. Most of the jars are broken on the top portion due to the slash and burn cultivation. There are villages, Jeminaga village. They do slash and burn cultivation there in the hills. So due to that, some of the jars being already destroyed on the top portion of the jars in the site called Nungsung Munglo. There are another sites called Lower Saikam. This is again map from the Lower Saikam, where 36 jars we have reported, but we are hopeful to report more from this sites. Here how they are distributed. Where the particular thing about all these maps, about this another site, Lungmilai, this is reported by State Department of Archaeology 2015, but this year we have in detail documentation of these sites. So here we see the peculiarity of this thing is that at all the jar sites, these jars were placed in a linear fashion from here, if I blow up this map, you'll see around 2-3 lines. They were arranged. Now, all the jars are made of locally available sandstone. These are in Boreal Formation of Dima Hasao district. Dima Hasao, sorry, maybe I did not explain about Dima Hasao. Dima Hasao is a district in Assam, in a middle Assam. It is bordering Meghalaya in one side, other side is Nagaland and Manipur. So this Boreal Formation, this sandstone is locally available. They have exploited this sandstone, and at all the sites we have only sandstone. These jars are made of only sandstone. Whereas if you see Laos, there are 5 different kind of material being used where sandstone is dominant, but then other four kind of stones also they have exploited in Laos. But here only we found of sandstone. At Kobak, where there's a site called in Dima Hasao, we have seen that they have exploited the exposed outcrops from the hills, and then maybe they have done trimming and shaping of these 2 jars, and they have placed these jars very close to the area of outcrop. Whereas in Laos, quarries are very far, sometimes very far from the area where they have planted the jars. But in case of in Dima Hasao, in northeast, so far we have not reported any kind of quarry sites as they have in Laos. And then these jars are as it is jars, obviously they will be having a cavity. So now how they have made it, that is also a question, because in Northeast India we are not sure about the use of we don't have date of early use of iron. And then these jars, when you see very closely, you will see some of the groove marks to hollow out the cavity. Here in the photographs, you see the groove marks. And then when we were in Laos in 2016 and 17, we visited some of the quarry sites. There we have noticed that they used to do they used to make the cavity and at the same time shaping outside simultaneously. So from the top they used to make they start digging for the cavity, then they start shaping the outside also. And process, sometime you'll see the groove marks, but these groove marks we are not sure from Northeast India that they have used iron, but definitely maybe a metallic tool. Or also it is not impossible to do this kind of rough carving by using hard wood. So as the Boreal sandstone is very soft, so it is not impossible to do this kind of carving, this kind of work on to hollowing out work with hard wood piece. But anyway, we need to do some details experimental work on this. Maybe in near future we'll try to do it. But in case of Laos, it is sure that they have used a metallic tool, that is iron, for hollowing out and shaping out the stone jars. Now, we have to, anyway, we have 10 sites and more than 800 jars. So we have to classify this that shape-wise to understand the distribution, shape-wise distribution of the jars within this 10 sites. So we have identified around 6 kind of types, shapes in Assam. First one, this one, the elongated biconical one. It is around more than 1 meter, sometime around 170 cm or 180 cm it comes. But its cavity is very small. That the bigger side, you have the cavity. Cavity is very, very small. And then other shape is that bicone one, that where the ridge is perfectly at the center. Here, this kind of jars are not bigger than 60 to 50 centimeter in height from the surface. And Cavity is also very small, maybe around 40 to 30 centimeter in depth. So we have taken the measurement of cavity, mouth cavity depth of all the jars that we have documented. And then other type is cylindrical type, which is also common in Laos. This are the first one, the elongated biconical one. I think it's also very rare in Laos. In northeastern in Assam, we have at only 2-3 sites. In Bolasan and Kobak, we have this. And then this is also a very unique shape. It is look like very globular on top of the surface, but when you little try to clean up, you'll see that it has a conical base. It is the conical base has a functionality because as the top portion is very globular, so it may not stand straight. So that is why the conical base has been made so that it remains stiff and stand on the surface. So this jar is very unique. This jar is from Dubungling, and it is from the surface. Its height is more than 140 centimeter, and then it is around 2 meter. And inside the cavity is also very big. So 2% or 3% can be accommodated very easily inside this cavity. So this is the biggest jar we have from Northeast India. And then such kind of 1 or 2 jars also been reported by Kolani from the Laos. Now, as in the beginning, I said that in these jars were probably covered by leads, and this been found from Laos. They have now the scholars from Laos. They are very sure that these were covered. Once upon a time, these were covered. But from Assam, we do not have any such evidence because we have not found any leads also nearby area of all 10 sites that we have reported. But Ursula Graham Bauer, when he wrote her book, the Naga Part, where she mentions about these stone jars in memory of Jemi Nagas. She says that she has noticed some of the jars with leads. But the sites she has mentioned where she has seen these jars with leads, it's at the present is very difficult to go. We could not make any attempt to go to that sites deep in the jungle, and so we have not made any attempt to go so far. But anyway, in Kobak in Dima Hasao in 2016, when we revisited, we have seen a circular disc. This photograph within grass cover. This one, we have seen a circular disc. So now we have a doubt. Probably this is one of the fallen leads from jars in Kobak. But there's another problem here. In Kolani, when she was working in Laos in 1935, she said that circular stones are not necessarily jar disc. It could be the burial stone, because there are some pit burials where they used to cover the pit with circular slab. So this is we have to confirm in future whether it is lead or a burial, a pit burial. Then, in case of northeastern jars from Assam jars, only at site Kobak we have some kind of engraving over it, engraving of zigzag line in the ridge area and the mouth area, and in between there are sometimes animal figure like cow, buffalo head, human head, like this. But what we understood is that probably these zigzag lines are original to the jars, but then in between this kind of animal figure or maybe human figure are later period somebody must have carved, because there is an overlapping between this zigzag line and the animal figures and human figures and all. So maybe initially these figures were not carved on the jars. Maybe in the later period, somebody must have carved it over it. And then along with that, we have another kind of evidence of engraving. These outlines that we have made. These are made on a circular stone. And it's a half moon shape kind of stone. On the flat surface, we have this kind of engraving. These 3 types we are having. But the first one, where you can see that square line with the 2 diagonals line and these typical symbols, We have around 36 from one site, Dubungling, where we have done some surface collection. I'll come to that a little later. So this map is from Dubungling, where you see these circular dots represent the jars, and then squarish box they represent the area where we have found engraving. So this is not that far distance, maybe around 400 meter away from the jar area. So number 46, where we have done little surface clearance for engraving area, and to understand the distribution of engraving, circular engraving stone in that area. So what we found is that there are engraving stone buried, circular on the top portion is flat, and thus in shape the stone is half moon shaped. So this is the area where we have done some kind of clearance, and all this represents sometimes full piece of the stones or sometimes broken stones. But interestingly, all we have counted 36, and these are, if you see some white lines, you make these white lines to understand the distribution pattern of this stones. And it looked like from photograph it is not so clear, but when you were there physically, you can make out that maybe these circular stones being arranged in a zigzag pattern. In a crisscross pattern. I'm sorry, it is crisscross pattern, and all these circular stones are having same kind of engraving. What you see this in this outline drawing, all 36 stones that we have cleaned and documented have same kind of engraving. No kind of different. All this thing in the same manner, like as if they are xerox copy of each other. And then this is very interesting from one particular area of having engraving of the same thing. So then this year we have found this kind of slab. Top portion is rounded and then little elongated slab where engraving of human figure. The first one, these are very close to the jar area at the site called Dubungling, where we have this map. If you see this human figures are somewhere from 26 and to 40 to 47 like this, and 46 is the area, this area where we have excavated. So this first two are perhaps the male figure, where extended leg and raised hand and holding something. In one hand they are holding a weapon, another hand holding something. It's not, we cannot make out where it is, but what it is may look like they are holding a bag kind of thing. And then this one, I think this is a kind of a female figure. And then they have a rough small figure. Maybe they are trying to portray children or child or something. And then this look like a female figure. And you see little kind of ornamental different style different also. Here for this figure, they have a kind of beaded kind of necklace here. But whereas in this figure, the neck is also different, and then we have this neck is covered with some kind of maybe ornament, and then maybe they are symbolic kind of breast they have given with to make it separate from male or female, to make it visible. And then other we this time also where we're cleaning near the jar area at Dubungling, this also we have found near the jar where this is star shape, and then this is not actually reproduction of this outline is not reproduction of this one. Okay, this I have just shown it just to this is from another stone from same site, just to show that this star shape how it is, and this has 4 tip. Here there is no human head is there, this outline drawing, but here in this real stone you'll see there are 4 human heads. If you see carefully, there are 4 human heads are there, and there are some other symbols are there. It's not so visible because of yeah. So this one, interestingly, when I put my mobile compass here, this really correspond to the north south and east west direction. Exactly, perfectly it correspond to north south and east west direction. This is the first of its kind that we have found from the jar area, but similar kind of thing we have from Indonesia. So I will now, this is a brief, this I have given a very brief characteristics of the jars from Northeast India. Now I will go very fast because I think I don't have much time. So now, why these jars were and who made these jars? So these jars were used for mortuary practice. Actually, this has been now confirmed by work done in Laos, and also we have from our preliminary work we are confirmed that this were, and also the memory local people are having regarding this jar. We are confirmed that this were used for mortuary practice. But who made it, we are not sure about it. They used to cremate. See, in Northeast India, we'll find mainly three language groups: Austroasiatic, Tibeto-Burman, and Indo-Aryan. And most probably, these jars were either Tibeto-Burman or maybe Austroasiatic language group people. But Tibeto-Burman language group people, they hardly burn their dead. They generally expose or they used to bury it. But Austroasiatic, they used to burn and then they collect the remain and they used to keep in a repository. So these stone jars look like a mortuary repository, at which has already been established in case of Laos by Magdalena Kolani and the recent work done by Australian National University. So now the Jemi Nagas, they have a memory that there's a lost group of people who used to make these jars, and they used to burn their dead, and they used to keep the cremated remain inside the jars, which along with all kind of belongings the person used to have. So, but Jemi Nagas, they used to loot these jars. They used to loot these jars to find some of the red color beads. They call it deomony because it has been found from the cremated area with area, so they call it deomony. So this is the memory that Jemi Nagas they are having about the stone jar, but they do not claim these stone jars belong to them, because generally in Northeast India, all the groups of people they are having very strong memory to their heritage. Even they can identify this belongs to which generation, and even sometimes they even remember the name also. So, but in case of these stone jars, no community they directly claim this, that as this has been made by their ancestor, so and so ancestor, say so and so ancestor. And then if we try to do some these are ethnographic data collection to understand the mortuary practice, or if we can bring some analogy to understand this stone jar. So we have selected the Austroasiatic group. Then they have a tradition that first they used to burn, and then they will collect the individual remain. Then they will keep in a cist near the home. Then after 1 year they will transfer that to the clan kind of repository. And this, when we are documenting the distribution pattern of the jars, we could notice some of the big jars, some of the small jars. So that may correspond to Mao Xiang and the Mao Fu concept of Austroasiatic. But this is in a very preliminary level of working hypothesis. We need to do more work on this. And again twin pond analogy. Mills and Hatton, they have given this, and they have reported twin ponds near some of the sites they have reported from Assam. And that concept of twin ponds near the cremation ground among the Austroasiatic is very important, because they used to clean the dead body before the cremation funeral rites. So now Mills and Hatton, they have reported twin ponds near these jar sites, in some of the jar sites in Assam. But during our visit, we have not reported any. Maybe it got buried due to the landslides and the rain wash. So we have to do in thorough explorations during the dry season. Then the another analogy is Kasia ethnohistory, the origin of Thank You clan, where the story narrates how mother, while crossing a river called Kupli is a boundary between Dimahasa and Assam and Meghalaya, modern boundary. Then while in ancient time, so geography is different kind of. So they have, while she covered is crossing the river, her daughter died, and then she cremated the daughter there, and she collected all material, all the remain in an earthen pot that came to the Juai, place called Juai, and where she has given the secondary ritual to the cremated remain. So this story is very important. This story suggests the migration tradition, migration of a tradition. Tradition is of keeping cremated remain in a pot. Here medium is changed. Medium is from art, stone to earth. So this may have an indication of a migration of these Jar people from Dima Hasao area to Meghalaya area. And exactly in the Juai area, Saipung River Forest, there are stone jars been reported recently by ASI and our one of our friend called Marco Mitri. So if you see the map, you'll understand this line is the boundary between Assam and Meghalaya. Here we have stone jar sites in Assam, and the other side, just here, they have reported stone jars again. And here, this orange line is also the boundary, also the river Kubli. It is the boundary between Assam and Meghalaya. That's as per the story that I have mentioned now. That the lady has crossed from Dima Hasao side to this side. So this could be one of the one of the folk stories that we have to work more to bring out more analogy to understand about this. And if you see the distribution of Austroasiatic, Kasi Pakanik, they have a wide distribution in Southeast Asia covering Northeast India. So once there, genetic studies already they have established that there is a migration of Austroasiatic, first migration from India to Southeast Asia, that is from Munda group, then reverse migration from Southeast Asia to Northeast India, which is Kasi Pakanik. So it is not impossible that this tradition of stone jar burial was practiced by the Austroasiatic language group speaking people once upon a time, and it was probably a reverse migration from Southeast Asia to the Northeast India. Now, very quickly, I'll show some of the photographs from Laos. Laos, it was reported in 1912, but extensive works done by Magdalena Kolani. It mainly you will find in Jianghuang province of Laos, the stone jars. And these are some of the photographs. There are 80 recorded sites are there. More than 200 jars are there in Laos. But difference is that they are still we have varieties of shape and type in Northeast India, but they are mainly this kind of cylindrical shapes are there, and sometimes they are bigger in size than Northeast India. And some of the sites, some of the jars in Laos have rims in the mouth portion, but in case of Northeast India, there is no rim been found. This is one of the differences. Then they are having engraving of human anthropomorphic or geomorphic figure on some of the jars. Not all, very rarely, 2-3 jars they have reported. Kolani reported, Jinobase reported, and Sokpal from ANU they have reported in Laos. But in case of Assam, we don't have this kind of jars. And work done by Niti Iza, Japanese archaeologist, and recently by ANU, and also by Magdalena Kolani in 1935. Their excavation near the jars in Laos, they have found pit burials or jar burials, terracotta burials from in between the jar sites of Laos. But in Assam, we don't have any indication of it, but and we have not done any excavation near the jar site, so we cannot say that it is not there, but it could be. We may find we may find some of the terracotta or jars and pit burials in between the jar site in Assam also. But question is that whether they're contemporary to stone jar, whether they have relation with stone jars, this is not sure. Even in case of Laos also, they are not sure whether these are related to stone jar or represent a different culture. These are from Indonesia, distribution of stone jars from Indonesia. And then the stone jars, they have cover, and covers are very elaborately decorated with the geomorphic and anthropomorphic figures. And then this is from Myanmar. And Myanmar burials jars are nothing to do with the jars from Laos or Assam or from Indonesia. These are Buddhist burial practice. Where I said why I have put these photographs, because whenever I speak about stone jars, and if somebody has seen the Royal Museum of Myanmar, immediately they say that there are jars in Myanmar also. But these are nothing to do culturally. Nothing has any cultural relationship with the jars from Laos or Northeast India. These are the burial practice from the Pew dynasty. Now, chronology of these jars. Myanmar jars, as I said, they're very recent, from 14th to 16th century. Indonesia, they have some date. It goes to 500 BC to 800 AD. Laos, still they are waiting for very absolute dates. But it should be it of the iron is, as per Kolani says that it is around 600 to 700 BC. Peter Boileau says 300 years ago, but they have found some of the jars, pit burials below the stone jars, and they have dated that. So we have to wait for a very precise date of stone jars from Laos. But anyway, it should be around BC's, early BC's. And then in Assam, we do not have date so far. We are still waiting for the date. One of our friend, Dr. Marco Mitris, he has collected some datable material from Meghalaya. He has given for date, but still we are waiting for that. As I said, that as it is already established in Laos that is being used, they had the knowledge of iron, and iron tools has been also found from the excavation by Kolani. Some of the iron tools they have already found from excavation and stone jars. And if we take this hypothesis that these are the iron using people in Laos, and they have migrated to Northeast India with this tradition, then this will be the earliest people who brought iron technology to Northeast India. Recently, we have a date of 400 BC of a slag collected from Shillong area, near Shillong area, and they have extracted the charcoal from the slag and they date it, and it came around 400 BC, but it is without any cultural context. It has no context with the stone jars. So now if 400 BC we have a date in Meghalaya area, and if we believe that stone jars they have brought the technology of iron, we should have early date of use of iron in the Mahasao area in Assam sites. So at the end, so I'll read out some problem and prospect of the stone jars as my general observations. The first and foremost problem in this regard is of understanding the distribution of the stone jars in a large geographical area covering Southeast Asia and Northeast India. So far, what is recognizable is that jars of Laos and Northeast India have similarities in many aspects, and perhaps both represent the same cultural population. However, we cannot ascertain the link between the two, except for stating the physical similarities and dissimilarities of the jars. Further, the cultural behavior of the jar people both in Laos and Northeast India is yet to be unearthed. Some excavations in Laos produce cultural materials to give hints, but those are not enough to understand the socio-cultural structure and behavior as a whole. Second, jars from Indonesia need to be examined to understand the possibility of a detached tradition yet related to Laotian jar tradition. Stone jars from Myanmar are different in the cultural context and cannot be compared with Laos and Northeast India. Third, a survey is required to evaluate the shapes of the jars in Laos. Though basic shapes have been identified by Kolani, and a process needed to record the variation and sub-variations at its site level. In the case of Northeast India jars, 6 types were identified, and it shows that some types are predominant only at some sites. Similarly, these shapes and styles need to be documented as per their occurrences at individual sites. There is a scope to record the relation of jar shapes and sub-shapes with the presence and absence of disc and disc styles. Further, the correlation between rim types and styles also need to be surveyed in relation to the shapes and sub-shapes of jars. Fourth, survey need to be designed to find habitation sites belonging to jar builders. Both in Laos and Northeast India, we need to find habitation sites. So far, no habitation sites have been reported, and the finding of habitation sites may reveal more on socio-cultural and socio-religious behavior of these jar people. Fifth, the context of terracotta jars and pit burials found in between stone jars in Laos needs considerable importance. Most of the terracotta jars and pit burials are found from sites 1 at Laos. Therefore, more works are needed at multi-site level to verify the coherency and contemporaneity or their cultural association with stone jars. Nita suggested their probable contemporaneity, but a contemporary of two does not necessarily mean cultural association with each other. It rather indicates coexistence. No terracotta or pit burials so far have been reported from Northeast India in surveys. As there is no excavation to date in Northeast India, the issue of terracotta and pit burials in between the jars is entirely speculative. Sixth, no quarry sites so far reported from Northeast India, but there are several quarry sites identified in Laos. Exclusive documentation is needed, focusing on steps of selection, separation of block from a parent rock, sequence of production, and process of transport. Some hypothetical suggestions on the sequence of production need to be verified with detailed survey and experimental studies. Seventh, iron objects have been found in and around jars in Laos, and thus undoubtedly point those jars builders knew the use of iron. However, it is not yet sure whether they had the knowledge of smelting. The finding of habitation sites as well as survey in and around quarry sites are required to find traces of iron smelting or melting. Moreover, scientific dating is required to know the time period of use of iron by the jar people. A date of iron in Laos may also give a hint of those may give a hint of the use of iron in Northeast India. So far, no evidence has been found from Northeast India to suggest the early use of iron, except for a slag dated 400 BC found without any cultural context. Excavations and surveys around the jar sites in Northeast India are equally important to understand the beginning of the use of iron in Northeast India. Iron has much antiquity in India, but the tradition of early use of iron to Northeast India rather came from Southeast Asia, and the jar builders perhaps were one of the earliest group to bring the knowledge of iron to Northeast India. However, substantial evidence is required to establish this fact. 8. The very pertinent question is about the authors of the jar culture. Kolani suggested the Austroasiatic origin of the jars. However, she could not offer much evidence on it. Southeast Asia was once populated by the Austroasiatic population, and its remnants can be seen in certain pockets of Southeast Asia and South Asia. The DNA study suggests the origin of Austroasiatic from India and their migration to Southeast Asia and their reverse migration to India via Northeast India. In Northeast India, the Austroasiatic population is still present in Assam and Meghalaya. The living Austroasiatic groups in Laos, Northeast India should consider for detailed ethnographic studies on burial practice. Folklores on migration and mortuary practice may also provide information. Folklore about origin of one Austroasiatic clan belonging to Kasia groups gives hints about their migration across the river Kupli from Dima Hasao to Zantia Hills. The folklore also indicates immediate mortuary practice and the use of terracotta jars as a repository for secondary ritual. So with this, I conclude my presentations. So first, I tried to give a characteristic representation of stone jars, and then a little comparative studies with comparative information with the Southeast Asian jars, and a summary what I observe and what I think that we need to do for Northeast India jars. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tilok, for accepting our invitation and giving us a detailed and insightful session on varied types of stone jars, thereby revealing multiple mysteries, running us through detailed photographs, maps, and drawings with a very detailed analysis. In the meanwhile, sir, we can take a few questions from the audience.
Okay. Okay, I can see some of the questions in the chat box. Shall I respond to that?
Yeah, yes, sir, please do.
Okay. There's a question by Rahul Thomas. Was any residual analysis done for one from there? No, we have not done, neither from Northeast India nor from the Laos. Not yet done. But this is possible to do, as some stone jars are made of sandstone. It may absorb some of the lipid, so it is possible. So in future, maybe we will like to do. And then one is asking how old is the monolith. I think I have already answered this in the dating section. And Santosh Kumar, no, he has given his details only. Okay, I think these are the questions. I think that much only that I could see. Okay. Somebody, I want to know, Center for History and Archaeology, I want to know if there is any connection between pit burials of Mizoram and Jar. No, it is not. They are different. they are different contexts, different cultural contexts. They are not same. They're not the same. And to know more about this connection of pit burials, we have to have some material culture first. Then also we have to have some pit burials in between the stone jars from Assam area. Then only we can give some of the comment on it. How far Mo Sharma? How far experimental archaeology would prove to be useful to explain the making of the stones in Northeast India? Was an attempt. We have not made any attempt to experimental attempt yet, but we are in the process of analyzing the possibility that of carving a block with the hard wood. If instead of iron, if we can make a small jars out using sandstone. That in for our future project. At present, we have not done it. Rahul Thomas is asking, could you interpret the other symbols on the jars? Other symbols are not many. There are only the star symbols that we have seen, that the square with two diagonals, and some of the symbols like alpha kind of symbols, and these symbols are repetitive. They are not many, all repetitive symbols. And if I did not go in detail about this, but we have some kind of what we have thought about this, that these are production of a very centralized command, because on 36 stones, if you are all the symbols are repeating, it means there has to be some instruction that you could not curve something different than what we have made. There are some centralized authority or centralized command is there. I have not gone all in details in this presentation, but elsewhere we have wrote. So you can go through by searching in Google. Yeah. I think that's all.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, once again for your time. For those among the audience who still have some more questions, you may send in your queries on our email ID so that we could get back to you. So here I, Architect Mildred Jose, your convener for today, conclude the second session of the webinar lecture series organized by the Center for Archaeology and History. Last but not the least, thank you so much to all the participants of the webinar and all our well-wishers for making another day of our webinar lecture series a success. A gentle reminder to all our participants to fill in the feedback form. The link for the same is provided in the chat box. It is a humble request to all the participants to enter the same name in the feedback as used to enter this particular Microsoft Teams webinar. Hoping to see all of you again for another interesting session on the 25th of November, Wednesday. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you.